Good afternoon. I'm Emily Gorman, Director of Community Engagement with AARP Indiana. Thank you for joining us and participating in this telephone town hall to talk about fraud and scam prevention and what AARP and the United States Congress are doing to fight back. Today's event is well-timed, as not only is today April Fool's Day, but also April is AARP's Fraud Prevention Month, a nationwide effort to raise awareness about fraud and scams happening across the country, as well as the information and resources that can protect you. I'm pleased to share that today's event will feature special guest Congressman Jefferson Shreve, as well as Chad Mullen, AARP Government Affairs Director on Financial Security. Again, for those of you just joining us, this is AARP Indiana, and today we are hosting this telephone town hall to inform you on the latest fraud and scam prevention work happening in Congress right now. You will be able to ask your questions live to the Congressman later in the program by pressing *3 on your keypad throughout the call. So let me set the stage for today's conversation. Right now, in 2026, financial scams are at crisis levels across our country. They don't just threaten the security of Americans 50 and older and their families, they can shake up entire communities. We're seeing a particular impact on older adults, many of whom are losing their life savings in their homes and even their peace of mind because of these schemes. The reality is these aren't just small-time operations. We are talking about sophisticated international criminal networks behind these crimes, with stolen funds that are rarely recovered, money that could have supported our local communities instead ends up fueling illegal activities overseas. And that is why AARP is on the front lines pushing for stronger consumer protections, helping victims, and working to make sure those responsible are held accountable. And before we go any further, I quickly want to highlight the incredible work that's being done right here in Indiana to fight fraud. Thanks to the teamwork between AARP, our state's top leaders, and dedicated local law enforcement, Indiana is taking real action to prevent scams. In March, Governor Braun signed into law House Enrolled Act 1116, making Indiana the very first state in the country to ban virtual cryptocurrency kiosks. These kiosks, also known as crypto ATMs, have been a favorite tool for scammers across the country, leading to over $333 million in losses for Americans just last year alone. This new law shows how committed AARP Indiana and state leaders are to protecting consumers. Rest assured, we are not stopping here. Our mission is to keep building the strongest possible safeguards for you and your loved ones at every level of government. We will be touching more on this landmark legislation with Chad later in the call. Before I hand things over to Congressman Shreve for his opening statement, I do want to cover a few housekeeping items. Throughout this call, we want to hear from you. We will be answering live audience questions after we've heard from the Congressman. So if you have a question that you would like to ask, please, again, just press *3 on your telephone keypad, and you will be connected with an AARP staff member who will note your name and your question and place you in a queue. You can do this at any time during the call. Again, you can press *3 to have your question added to the queue. AARP is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization working for you and your family. I encourage anyone listening to please be sure to check out the AARP Fraud Watch Network. It's a free resource to help people spot and avoid scams and connecting those affected by scams with fraud helpline specialists. If you have a pen and paper ready, the phone number for the Fraud Watch hotline is 877-908-3360. Again, that's 877-908-3360. You do not need to be an AARP member to utilize this helpline and this resource. So please make sure you share this with your friends and your family. You can also find these resources at aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork. Again, we want to hear from you. If you would like to ask a question, please press *3 at any time to speak with an AARP staff member and join the queue. So without further ado, I'm going to dive right in, and I'm thrilled to announce our special guest today, Congressman Jefferson Shreve. Congressman Shreve has been a driving force in Congress, leading the charge on fraud prevention and tirelessly advocating for Hoosiers back here in Indiana's 6th District. Congressman Shreve, I know I've been doing plenty of talking so far, and I'm sure that our listeners are very eager to hear directly from you. So thank you so much for joining us on today's program, and I'm going to hand the microphone over to you.
Emily, thank you very much, and thank you to AARP for not only convening the conversation, but for being a partner in crime fighting with me, my team, and our elected officials at the state level, including Governor Braun and other members of Indiana's delegation. Folks, I'm Jefferson Shreve, and I got the honor of representing Indiana's 6th District. My work is focused through 2 committee assignments. I serve on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. From the start of my time in Congress, the scam fighting work that we're talking about, sharing information on today, has been a top priority for me, and I'm grateful to everyone across our state who's taken the time to join us. What we're wrestling with is serious. It's really serious. The scams have become a direct financial threat to families across our district, across our state, and candidly across this country. The victims are here, close to home, or across our country, but the criminals behind so many of these scams are offshore. And I'm not talking about the old sort of email that you might have received, or even a letter from someone that would claim to be a Nigerian prince with bad grammar. I mean, these are sophisticated criminal operations. Emily, as you noted, they're oftentimes based abroad. Particularly, they emanate from Southeast Asia. And many of these have been enabled, supported directly, indirectly by communist China. They're getting better and better at what they do. AI. We talk about AI all the time. AI can be a game changer in lots of positive ways. It can be a great threat for others, including many of the people that I'm working hard to represent. Artificial intelligence is providing means, tools, technology for scammers to mimic in an email, a text, or even by voice, a trusted friend or a family member. It can make a text message look like it came from your own bank. It can make an email look official enough to fool just about anyone. It can make an email or a text message make you think it's coming from your own government. And let me just say it plainly. If you've been targeted, or moreover, if you've fallen for one of these scams, one, don't be embarrassed. I mean, these criminals are super sophisticated, and they're good and getting better and better at it. And that's their job. My job, our job, is to make it harder for them to pull one over on our citizens. Emily, the most important thing to talk about is to share this, to educate those that we care about, those that we represent, those that are members of your association, to encourage people to report these scams, whether the people were actually duped or nearly scammed. I think it's important to report these, to share it, and that helps to protect others that we care about. One of the great challenges in this space is we know the numbers. We know that the cost that people are scammed out of is in the billions and billions, but the reporting is so spotty that it's been more challenging to marshal the resources at the level that this deserves if these crimes are underreported. So, Emily, I think our goal, certainly my goal today, is pretty straightforward. I want to help our listeners spot some of the warning signs, know when to pause, to hesitate, know when and where to turn for help. And I'm glad to be a part of that. And thank you again to AARP for convening the conversations. These scammers are clever, but they don't need the field to themselves, Emily.
I couldn't agree with you more, and we will obviously be getting into a little bit more detail on that momentarily, and as you said, looking for what those red flags might be that folks should look out for. But again, as you mentioned, there's no shame in this. Sharing it is how we help people avoid becoming a victim. So I want to thank you so much for that introduction. And if you are just tuning in, welcome to AARP Indiana's Telephone Town Hall, where we are joined by Congressman Jefferson Shreve, who you just heard there, and we're discussing fraud and scams. Just a quick reminder, if you would like to ask a question or even share a story about your experience with fraud or scams, please hit *3 on your phone keypad, and we will let you speak directly with the Congressman himself. One of our AARP staff members will take your name and your question, and you'll get added to a list to ask it live. So, Congressman Shreve, while we have a couple minutes for our listeners to queue up their questions, I wanted to get things started with a couple questions from us. You serve as the chairman and the founder of the new bipartisan Congressional Stop Scams Caucus. Could you tell us more about the caucus, what its mission is, and any current legislation that might be impacting our members and Hoosiers 50 plus?
Happy to share. Emily, I've been in office for 15 months. In Washington, D.C., I'm considered a freshman member of Congress. It didn't take me long as I started into the work, though, to realize the challenge that scammers presented the people that I represent. It was one of the first issues that my constituents raised with me after I got here. I heard from Hoosiers across our district and some beyond the boundaries of our district who had lost real money to scams that look completely legitimate. And bear in mind, some of these scams are kind of piddly. I mean, they can be a fake toll road scam or a speed camera fine. Some of them are for a few $100s, but some of the scams are really sophisticated and can cost someone their life savings. The more I dug into it, the clearer it became. Our federal government, Washington, was not treating this problem with the urgency that it deserves. These are not isolated cases, Emily. They're organized criminal networks, as I noted, oftentimes emanating from Southeast Asia, from overseas. And they're targeting Americans every day. And that's why I founded the Stop Scams Caucus that you just mentioned. This caucus is made up of members of the House of Representatives, both sides of the aisle. There are over 20 of us that have joined this caucus, and we're growing our ranks every day. Our aim is to educate from within our ranks of Congress, so we can all go back home and do what we're doing right now, to take this message to our constituents, to the people that we represent, and bring more pressure, more coordination of law enforcement efforts. We need members from both parties engaged, because this is not a partisan issue. And I'll tell you what, in a narrowly divided Congress, in an era of starkly partisan politics at times, it sure is satisfying to be able to focus real work and get some things done that we all care about. Whether you're a Democrat from New Jersey or California, or a Republican, as I am, from Indiana, we all care about helping protect our citizens from being scammed by people overseas. We've made progress. Our Treasury Department has begun issuing sanctions. Our Justice Department has created a dedicated task force. And on the legislative side, my bill, the Dismantle Foreign Scam Syndicate Act, just passed the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and it passed unanimously. Emily, it passed 48-0. I mean, that just about never happens.
Wow.
But that reflects the recognition and the spirit with which I and my colleagues are working to address this challenge and take it on. That bill, the Dismantle Foreign Scam Syndicate Act, helps our government identify and disrupt these foreign scam operations before Americans lose money. That matters everywhere. It certainly matters here in Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely sounds like you and your office are dedicated to being proactive and getting out ahead of this instead of reactive, which I'm sure our constituents are incredibly grateful for. I know that you recently have shared, that you have had scammers reach out to you and attempt to scam you with the toll road things and stuff like that. So I know that, nobody's immune to this, and we need to make sure that we're getting out in front of it. I did, on that note, want to ask you if you could briefly share a little bit more about what your office in district is doing to help protect Hoosiers, and what should your constituents know about getting help here in the 6th District if they have been a victim?
We're taking this message and working hard from a district office standpoint to do what we're doing today, to be forward deployed in the counties that we represent. There are 11 counties in our district, and hold these round tables, these town halls, if you will, centered on our scam fighting efforts to educate those, and not just our citizens, but also those in the law enforcement community, in the financial services, in the banking community, in the merchant communities, because all too often a local bank or a sheriff's office will take a report from someone that was just scammed or thinks they may have been scammed, and they're not clear yet as to the resources at the state and federal level that can come together to help one, report this and attempt to recover some of the money that the victim may have just been scammed out of. And so at our district office level, we're out in Hancock County, in Johnson County. We'll be in Franklin with a scam fighting summit at Otterbein later this month, educating, encouraging people to report these crimes when you spot them, or if you're the victim of them. And then we are working from the D.C. side to develop and strengthen some of that legislation that I just spoke with you about, to enable Treasury, DOJ, to provide them with the tools to attempt to recover some of these funds that people are scammed out of, and to improve the scam reporting so law enforcement gets better information faster. You had an opportunity with a teletown hall that AARP hosted recently, in which the tax relief efforts were highlighted, and I think that's worth noting from a policy-making standpoint, from a federal standpoint. We're trying to prevent victims from the double hit of both having been scammed out of money and then having to pay taxes on money that they were duped out of. If you are scammed and you pull money out of your 401k, you've lost on two fronts, because that money may just be gone, but under our federal tax code, you're still going to be responsible for for taxes on an early 401k withdrawal. Well, we can help fix that, and so legislatively, that's also something that we are working to help soften the blow for victims close to home and across our country. You noted that we're working to crack down on the machines and the networks that enable scam calls and the texts in the first place. Some of those machines I'm talking about are the crypto ATMs. You may know them as Bitcoin ATMs. I think Indiana can be proud that we passed emergency legislation to outlaw those Bitcoin ATMs. But we are way ahead of the other states because these machines that you would see at the front end of legitimate retailers like a Kroger store or in a C-store, a convenience store around the corner at all sorts of places, are one of the main tools of the criminals. You're putting real money, hard dollars, into these machines. They're converted to a digital currency, and off they go into overseas funds. And once they're out the door, our ability to recover those falls off really fast. Indiana passed a law, Public Law 143, that our governor enacted as emergency legislation, and so that tool is no longer available to scammers here close to home. But we've got a lot of work to advance that model legislation across our neighboring states and beyond. We're focused on the online scams. A lot of fraudulent ads on social media are there to entrap and confuse the people that we represent, that we serve, your members, my constituents. These look like they're coming from legitimate companies. And so to that end, I've co-sponsored legislation, Emily, that'll require these platforms to do more to identify and remove those ads before they reach the consumers, before they reach the people that we represent. This isn't easy because the companies that have these sponsored ads make good money off of them, and there's some big companies behind them. They're legitimate companies like Meta, but they are doing business, in my opinion, with some illegitimate operators. And so that accountability matters. It matters at every level, and I'm hustling, along with colleagues, to heighten that accountability with those online platforms that can entrap and snarl and simply rob from our citizens. If you think you've been scammed, Emily, it's so important to remind people and remind them again and to share this with your family and friends. Act quickly. If you think you've been scammed, act quickly. Report it. Time really matters here, more than any of us may like, but time matters. The ability to stop an outbound transmittal falls off fast if it's not reported quickly.
Absolutely. That is excellent information, and I'm sure on behalf of those in District 6, we can thank you for all of your work that you're doing. This is so important. And as you said, if you can recognize a scam, then you can stop a scam. And even if you have been a victim of a scam and you have lost your money, reporting it is still incredibly important because that's the way that we're going to be able to stop this from happening to people in future. So please make sure, if you have been a victim, that you are reporting these scams. Before we jump to a couple of questions we have from our listeners waiting on the line, I did just want to invite Chad Mullen, who is AARP's Senior Government Affairs Director on Financial Security, to share a little bit more about AARP-endorsed fraud legislation that is making its way through Congress right now. So Chad, I'll welcome you onto the line. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, Emily, thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone who's dialed in to listen today. And I'm going to be honest, following the congressman is a tough act to follow here, but I do want to take just a minute, if I could, of personal privilege, and just let your listeners know some of the just how hard Congressman Shreve's working. You've heard the numerous bills, and that he founded the Stop Scams Caucus, which is very important. We, AARP, worked with a few of our partners to hold a briefing on the Hill for congressional staff about what their bosses could do to help join in this effort. And Congressman Shreve graciously gave us time to come and speak directly to the staff and talk about the importance of this. And even right now, as he's talking about fraud on this call, his legislative director's at another fraud conference right now, speaking out. And so I just want the folks back home in Indiana to know you've got a champion who is really trying to move the needle on this on the Hill, and we're trying to help him basically. And so he's covered a number of the bills that we support because he's either introduced them or is a co-sponsor of them. But basically, we kind of think about it in really three buckets. And so, bucket one, and I think the congressman said it eloquently, so I'm just going to be real fast here, is to marshal the resources of the federal government. I come from a very small town. We had a very, very small police. We didn't even have a full-time police department when I was growing up. We just had a few officers. And so we did rely, if there was anything more than sort of a immediate crime, we relied on, either statewide partners like our State Bureau of Investigation or even our federal partners. So a handful of legislation that we're promoting to marshal those resources and make sure that everyone in the federal government is focused on this, that they're coordinated, and that they're leveraging their tools and their resources to combat these scams, to cut them off where they can, and then go after them in a very coordinated way. The second thing, we have a bill called the GUARD Act. The congressman is a co-sponsor of that bill as well. That helps equip your local law enforcement in Indiana, either at the state or the local level, with tools. As the congressman mentioned, these are not the one-off con men just coming through town like they used to. These scam complexes, they get shut down. I mean, they are buildings with residential halls and offices with rows and rows of computers and hundreds of people working 24 hours a day to try to scam you. And so it is a whole different beast. In fact, crime, frauds, and scam grew 43% last year. If it was an industry, it would be the fastest growing industry in America. And so, it's operating at scale, and it's going to require us to respond at scale. And so the GUARD Act will help your local law enforcement get the tools and the training and the equipment that they need to go after these sophisticated crimes, and frankly, try to keep up with this awful cat and mouse game. And then the last thing, and the congressman noted this as well, so I don't want to dwell on it too much, but as he mentioned, we have a couple bills we're working on around what's called the theft loss deduction, but essentially, as he said, the criminal steals your life savings, your retirement savings. The criminal is off spending your money, but you get stuck with the tax bill on it. And we think that's almost as criminal as the original crime, so we're working to pass those. And thanks to folks like Congressman Shreve, we have Congress's attention. Congress gets bombarded with, the congressman can correct me, but probably 1,000 issues a day that come across his desk. And so just having leaders like the congressman who are focusing his fellow members on these issues, coordinating, is going to make a big difference. I think we're going to see some really positive results from that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Chad. That's super important for folks to know how AARP is out here and we're supporting this legislation to hopefully protect folks. I do want to remind our listeners, if you have a question that you would like to ask directly to Congressman Shreve, please dial *3 on your telephone keypad and you can ask your question now. I am going to take a question that we have in the queue from a caller and allow them to ask their question to the congressman. So Carrie has called in from Indianapolis, and I'm going to get her on the line. Carrie, are you there? Can you hear us?
I'm here, yes.
Do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Well, this happened to me last year. I got scammed from an overseas person, and I didn't know it at the time. But they said they were from Publishers Clearinghouse and that I had won $1 million. And, of course, I wanted $1 million, so I fell for the scam. So he made me go to the Office Max store and get this printout that he was sending of instructions that I had to do to get the money. But all the time, the whole time, it was a scam for him to try to scam my money.
Wow.
Well, Carrie, thank you for sharing that example. These scam callers may be calling from Southeast Asia, but I'm guessing that the person that you heard from that said he was from Publishers Clearinghouse didn't have an Asian accent, didn't sound like he was calling from a call center in India. And part of the reason is that AI technology can let a scammer change their voice, their accent to sound like they're from around the corner or from Ohio. And so if it's tough now, it's just going to get tougher yet, because they'll not only be able to change their accent with the computer technology that they're using, increasingly they're going to be able to replicate voice of family members, grandkids, friends. There are a couple of things that I think you experienced in that example that our listeners should be attuned to. There's always that sense of urgency that the scammer is trying to invoke, and I'm guessing that this person that was calling with happy news that you'd won it big time with Publishers Clearinghouse implied some urgency in getting you down to the Office Max to get those instructions, and then was going to hang with you as he directed you as to how to make some sort of a payment
Right.
that was just a necessary kind of pre-step to the big windfall that you were otherwise about to enjoy. So if the caller has that element of urgency, be careful. Something's wrong. And if there's an unusual payment demand, whether by a gift card, a wire transfer.
Yes, that's what happened.
Yeah, that's a great big red flag, and thanks for sharing that example with the others that are joining us today. Sometimes the scammer is putting some emotional pressure on the potential victim. That's especially the case with what we kind of refer to as the grandparent scam, where the caller sounds like they're a grandchild in trouble, and the story is urgent, and the pressure's immediate, and that's the play. That's the most important thing, or common thing that we see in these impersonation scams. Well, Carrie, thanks for sharing that.
Too was he was wanting me to go to my bank account then after the Office Max and get all this money out to send to him. And then I knew it was really a scam, so I didn't do that.
Carrie, one of our partners in this crime-fighting effort are the banks and the credit unions. Both the big ones are a little further along than our local banks and credit unions are, but the people working the teller lines are increasingly being skilled up through these efforts to be on the lookout for a bank customer coming in to withdraw a bunch of money and try to read whether or not they're under some distress. Sometimes the scammers actually keeping them on the line because they don't want to lose the scammer once they got a potential victim. They want to keep them. They want to keep them connected, keep that sense of urgency going until they can complete the theft. And so we're working. The banks are working to educate the tellers on the front line to be on the lookout to protect their customers from being bilked out of their own hard-earned money. But that doesn't work if you're going to your ATM and pulling the dollars. The banks don't have that opportunity if you go pull the dollars out of your debit card at the machine because it comes out of a legitimate ATM, and then victims are feeding it into oftentimes these Bitcoin ATMs, these crypto ATMs that are just the tools that the scammers use.
I want to thank Carrie for sharing her story. Thank you for calling in. As we said before, the importance of sharing this so that other people can recognize what those red flags are and do exactly what you did and stop before it's too late is so important. So thank you for sharing your story. Congressman, we do have a couple more live callers. I'm going to call on, this is Catherine calling in from Richmond. Let me just get her on the line. Catherine, do we have you there?
You do.
Wonderful. Do you want to go ahead with your question?
Sure. A couple years ago, I was scammed, and I got a incoming call from my bank, and it was, it showed the bank name. It actually was their phone number because I have that in my contacts. And, to make a long story short, I did get scammed, but as soon as I got off the phone, I knew something wasn't right, and I called my bank, and they straightened it out. But my question is, how are they hacking and using legitimate phone numbers, and what can you do to protect against that?
That's a great question. You did something here in this example you just shared with us that's so important for people to be reminded of. You called your bank. You called your bank
I did.
so they could stop it before the money was transmitted out of there. And so timeliness is super important. How do they get this information? Well, the sophisticated computer tech that these great big scam centers have over in Southeast Asia enables them to mimic phone numbers. So it looks like it's coming from, in Richmond, the 765 area code. In Columbus, Indiana, the 812 area code. In Johnson County, from 317. It's not coming from an overseas number. It looks like it's coming from somewhere really close to home. And they're able to...
Well, it wasn't just the area code, though. The whole number was actually...
Okay, here's how that increasingly is happening. You'll get emails from maybe what looks like it's coming from your internet service provider.
Sure.
And it would say, your account is your email account is about to be shut down unless you respond and confirm that the account is still active.
Okay.
Seen scams like that. They're not fishing for your money on that scam. They're fishing for access to your data, to your information, a backdoor into your contacts, into your phone address book. And so you've got to be really careful at the scams aren't always directly looking for money. They're looking for information that can be used to scam you out at the next attempt. And so if you respond to one of those scam emails where it wants you to confirm that your account is still active, your email, and be super careful if it's asking you for your account login passwords, because these scammers can backdoor into your address book, your contacts, and then they can spoof it when you get a call from what looks like it's coming from your local bank.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
They're getting so clever. We've just got to be careful. And here's another takeaway: your bank, a legitimate bank, credit union, local, big, small, isn't going to call you up, and that's just not going to happen. Same thing with government, a government agency, local government, state government, federal government. There's never going to be a government demand for payment that comes across in an email or a text. If you get one like that, toll road scams, speed camera scam, don't do it. It's a big red flag.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for calling in and sharing your story and your question for the Congressman. I do have one more caller that I want to bring on live. It's Beverly, and she is from Indianapolis. Beverly, do I have you there?
Yes.
Wonderful. Do you want to go ahead and ask the Congressman your question?
Yes. Last year, I was scammed. I didn't give any money, but I had a phone call from CVS, and I do business with CVS, and they were checking their records, and they wanted my Medicare number. Medicare number. And I gave it to them without realizing, well, that started an episode of somebody wanting to sell me medical equipment, and they actually found out who my doctor was. I didn't tell them. And they started calling through the doctor. And then they left me alone for a while, and a month later they started calling again. But I've received calls that suppose they're from Eskenazi, Community Health, and other, things that we do business with. Not the bank, thank goodness. But the latest calls I'm getting have to do with final expenses. And, hey, I thought you had to be dead to get final expenses. So I'm not very polite anymore. I'm really nasty. And I just, I don't know what on earth final expenses are. Have you heard of that one?
Beverly, I haven't heard of that reference to final expenses before, but you made me grin when you said you're not so nice anymore, because part of the challenge that we have, particularly in Indiana, is kind of who's your nice, who's your hospitality, and we're a trusting people. And so I think we've been disproportionately victimized by these scammers. And look, we still want to be nice, hospitable, and trusting, but we've got to have our guard up when we get red flags like this from some of these scammers. But that's part of the reason that I've leaned into this space, because I represent a part of our heartland that's made up of people that are hospitable. We tend not to just hang up on people if we don't recognize the number. And that may not be the case in parts of New Jersey. I hadn't heard that one, but getting a call from Eskenazi is related to the experience that Catherine just shared with us. The part of the backdoor way into spoofing the number that shows up on your phone from a caller stems from what are called these SIM card farms. The SIM card is this little data card inside our cell phones, and the scammers are figured out the technology to spoof the SIM cards in our phones. Once they hack into some of our contact detail and make a call come up that will look like it's coming from your grandchild, from your doctor's office, from Medicare, whatever it may be. And so my office is working on a bill to crack down on the problem at that end of the equation too, to ban these SIM card farms. And I know AARP is equally interested in fighting this end of the crime too, because it makes it harder and harder and harder to know what's fraud and what's family.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Beverly, for calling in and for sharing your question with the Congressman. Really appreciate that. And to remind our listeners, you can ask the Congressman a question live on this call by dialing *3 on your telephone keypad, and you will be added to a queue, and we'll let you speak to him live. We do have a couple of minutes left, and I'll try to get to everyone that I possibly can. While we wait for a few more questions to come through, I'm going to go back to Chad quickly, and I wondered if you might be able to share with us just quickly what work AARP Indiana has done recently regarding our crypto ATM law and how that work is impacting what AARP is looking to do on the federal level. I know we spoke to this a little bit earlier, but I wondered if you'd be able to go into a little bit more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, let me just say a huge thank you to Governor Braun, the Indiana legislature, and AARP Indiana, and any volunteers who may be listening in today that helped with this issue. But Indiana became the first state in the nation to do a statewide ban on crypto ATMs. Just a super quick history on this. We have our Fraud Watch Network call center, and sometime back we increasingly heard folks were putting their cash in these machines. And once you put the cash in these machines, it often is gone instantly overseas, out of the hands of our law enforcement's ability in most cases to get these funds back. So we didn't know at the time what all these machines were being used for, but we just knew that they were becoming a vector for fraud. So we began working in states across the country on this particular issue to regulate or ban them. As that process unfolded, what we've learned is they're almost exclusively used for fraud. We had attorney generals in Iowa and D.C., two very different states, both do investigations and come to the conclusion that well over 90% of all transactions were related to fraud, and I suspect it's probably closer to 100%. We've had various police officers who've been able to subpoena transaction records over time, and they often find that the average age of a user of a crypto ATM is somewhere between 70 and 76. So again, it's just telling that these machines are largely used for fraud. And again, $333 million is what the FBI found was stolen using these machines last year. But as part of these investigations, individual states have found half that or nearly that amount in their own state. So I suspect we're closer to billions of dollars once we have better reporting on it. So huge congratulations to Indiana, who's leading that effort. Because of your efforts, other states are taking notice. I believe Tennessee has a bill that does the exact same thing that's on their governor's desk as we speak. Minnesota is got one right behind you, and several other states are working on this issue. And as well, federally, we talk to a lot of members of Congress all the time who are looking at ways that they can help. We've seen federal regulatory agencies this year release warnings and advisories, making sure folks are on the lookout for this and helping law enforcement identify these things. So you guys are really leading. You're on the leading edge of this. It's going to make a huge impact. The average loss to a crypto ATM scam is $40,000. That's the average loss. That's basically 8 years of groceries. That's 65 years of tithing at a church. That's 5 years worth of dining and leisure and travel, the things that we are supposed to be enjoying when we retire. So kudos to everyone in Indiana who helped make that possible.
Hey, Chad, that $330-odd million estimate is an estimate, but I'd bet dollars to donuts it's way low.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm working on a bill to ban the crypto ATMs, the Bitcoin ATMs at the federal level. And I'm working on this with Representative Raskin, who's my co-chair on the Stop Scams Caucus. Mr. Raskin's a Democrat. as I said, this thing isn't partisan. This is just a problem, not a partisan problem. And I'm working with Mr. Karsten, not Carson, Karsten. He's over in Illinois, and one of my Republican colleagues, super guy, Brian Stile, who's up in Wisconsin. So the four of us are working on this bill to ban crypto ATMs at the federal level, and we are modeling this on Indiana, who's at the very tip of the spear with our legislation that isn't just legislation, it's the law of the land now. We can be proud of what we've accomplished here in Indiana. I'm trying to bring that success to bear at the federal level.
We are setting trends out here in Indiana. Thank you, Chad and Congressman Shreve, for sharing that information on crypto ATMs. We just wanted to make sure that folks got the latest on what's been going on here in our home state. And we're coming close to the end here, so I do just want to say what a fantastic conversation this has been today with Congressman Shreve, diving into how Congress is taking action to protect Hoosiers from fraud and scams. On behalf of AARP Indiana, I do want to thank everyone who tuned in today and shared your questions and stories on this telephone town hall. Our time is almost up, but we've appreciated your thoughtful questions and engagement throughout the program. If we did not get to your question live on air, please don't worry. You can stay on the line after and leave us a voicemail with your question, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. And remember, you can always find helpful answers and resources on our Fraud Watch Network Frequently Asked Questions page at aarp.org/fraud. I would like to extend an extra special thanks to Congressman Shreve and Chad Mullen for joining us and sharing their expertise with our listeners today. Congressman, as we wrap up, would you like to revisit any of our audience questions or offer any closing thoughts before I let everyone go?
Emily, let me just highlight the theme of what we've heard from the several people that shared their experiences with all of us. Those experiences are really helpful to me in my work. The number one job, responsibility of a representative in Congress is to listen. You got to listen to represent, and I'm grateful for the time today. 3 top-line thoughts. These scams are getting more and more advanced, more believable. That's the reality. Second, if something feels off, it probably is. So slow down. Take a breath. Scammers want speed. You don't give it to them. And third, don't go through this alone. If you get a suspicious call, a text, an email, talk to someone you trust. A family member, a friend, your bank, my office. You're not in it alone. And if something does happen, report it. Report it and do it quickly. Don't stay silent. That's exactly what the criminals are counting on. It's a serious issue, but this is a solvable one. We are solving this. We're working to solve this here in our district, here in Indiana. We've got to solve it here in the United States. I thank you for your time. Reach out to me, to our office, if we can be of help. Our phone number, our district office number, is area code 317-399-3333. 317-399-3333. We're here to help. I thank everyone for tuning in, and I so appreciate the great work of AARP in joining me in this fight.
Thank you so much, Congressman Shreve, and I want to extend a thank you on behalf of your constituents for being such a fantastic advocate in helping this fight against fraud. So thank you for your insights and expertise and being so generous with your time today. I do want to encourage our listeners to visit AARP's Fraud Watch Network to learn more about ways to protect you and your family from scams at aarp.org/fraud. If you suspect a scam, you can report it through the Fraud Watch Network Scam Tracking Map or on our helpline. And that number, again, if you have your pen and paper, is 877-908-3360. Again, that's 877-908-3360. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.